Hello, my friends, and welcome back for our final chunk of chapters from The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Today, we are on chapter 21. It was then that the fox appeared. "Good morning," said the fox. "Good morning," the little prince answered politely, though when he turned, he saw nothing. "I'm here," the voice said, "under the apple tree." "Who are you?" the little prince asked. "You're very pretty." "I'm a fox," the fox said. "Come and play with me," the little prince proposed. "I'm feeling so sad." "I can't play with you," the fox said. "I'm not tamed." "Oh, excuse me," said the little prince. But upon reflection, he added, "What does tamed mean?" "You're not from around here," the fox said. "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for people," said the little prince. "What does tamed mean?" "People," said the fox, "have guns and they hunt. It's quite troublesome. And they also raise chickens. That's the only interesting thing about them." "Are you looking for chickens?" "No," said the little prince. "I'm looking for friends." "What does tamed mean?" "It's something that's been too often neglected. It means to create ties." "To create ties?" "That's right," the fox said. "For me, you're only a little boy just like 100,000 other little boys, and I have no need of you. And you have no need of me either. For you, I'm only a fox like 100,000 other foxes. But if you tame me, we'll need each other. You'll be the only boy in the world for me. I'll be the only fox in the world for you." "I'm beginning to understand," the little prince said. "There's a flower. I think she's tamed me." "Possibly," the fox said. "On Earth, one sees all kinds of things." "Oh, this isn't on Earth," the little prince said. The fox seemed quite intrigued. "On another planet?" "Yes." "Are there hunters on that planet?" "No." "Well, now that's interesting. And chickens?" "No." "Nothing's perfect," sighed the fox. But he returned to his idea. "My life is monotonous. I hunt chickens, people hunt me. All chickens are just alike, and all men are just alike, so I'm rather bored. But if you tame me, my life will be filled with sunshine. I'll know the sound of footsteps that will be different from all the rest. Other footsteps send me back underground. Yours will call me out of my burrow like music. And then look, you see that wheat field over there? I don't eat bread. For me, wheat is of no use whatever. Wheat fields say nothing to me, which is sad. But you have hair the color of gold, so it will be wonderful once you've tamed me. The wheat, which is golden, will remind me of you. And I'll love the sound of the wind in the wheat." The fox fell silent and stared at the little prince for a long while. "Please, tame me," he said. "I'd like to," the little prince replied, "but I haven't much time. I have friends to find and so many things to learn." "Well, the only things you learn are the things you tame," said the fox. "People haven't time to learn anything. They buy things ready-made in stores. But since there are no stores where you can buy friends, people no longer have friends. If you want a friend, tame me." "What do I have to do?" asked the little prince. "You have to be very patient," the fox answered. "First, you'll sit down a little ways away from me, over there, in the grass. I'll watch you out of the corner of my eye, and you won't say anything. Language is the source of misunderstandings. But day by day, you'll be able to sit a little closer." The next day, the prince returned. It would have been better to return at the same time, the fox said. For instance, if you come at 4 in the afternoon, I'll begin to be happy by 3. The closer it gets to 4, the happier I'll feel. By 4, I'll be all excited and worried. I'll discover what it costs to be happy. But if you come at any old time, I'll never know when I should prepare my heart. There must be rites. What's a rite? Asked the little prince. That's another thing that's been too often neglected, said the fox. It's the fact that one day is different from the other days. 1 hour is different from the other hours. My hunters, for example, have a rite. They dance with the village girls on Thursdays. So Thursday's a wonderful day. I can take a stroll all the way to the vineyards. If the hunters danced whenever they chose, the days would all be just alike, and I'd have no holiday at all. That was how the little prince tamed the fox. And when the time to leave was near, "Ah," the fox said, "I shall weep." "Well, it's your own fault," the little prince said. "I never wanted to do you any harm, but you insisted that I tame you." "Well, yes, of course," the fox said. "Oh, but you're going to weep," said the little prince. "Yes, of course," the fox said. "Well, then you get nothing out of it?" "I get something," the fox said, "because of the color of the wheat." Then he added, "Go look at the roses again. You'll understand that yours is the only rose in the world. Then, come back to say goodbye. I'll make you the gift of a secret." The little prince went to look at the roses again. "You're not at all like my rose. You're nothing at all yet," he told them. "No one has tamed you, and you haven't tamed anyone. You're the way my fox was. He was just a fox like 100,000 others, but I've made him a friend, and now he's the only fox in the world." And the roses were humbled. "You're lovely, but you're empty," he went on. "One couldn't die for you. Of course, an ordinary passerby would think my rose looked just like you, but my rose, all on her own, is more important than all of you together, since she's the one I've watered, since she's the one I put under glass, since she's the one I sheltered behind a screen, since she's the one for whom I killed the caterpillars, except 2 or 3 for butterflies, since she's the one I listened to when she complained, or when she boasted, or even sometimes when she said nothing at all, since she's my rose." And he went back to the fox. "Goodbye," he said. "Goodbye," said the fox. "Here is my secret. It's quite simple. One sees clearly only with the heart. Anything essential is invisible to the eyes." "Anything essential is invisible to the eyes," the little prince repeated, in order to remember. "It's the time you spent on your rose that makes your rose so important." "It's the time I spent on my rose," the little prince repeated, in order to remember. "People have forgotten this truth," the fox said, "but you mustn't forget it. You become responsible forever for what you've tamed. You're responsible for your rose." "I'm responsible for my rose," the little prince repeated, in order to remember. Chapter 22. "Good morning," said the little prince. "Good morning," said the railway switchman. "What is it you do here?" asked the little prince. "I sort the travellers into bundles of 1,000, the switchman said. "I dispatch the trains that carry them, sometimes to the right, sometimes to the left." And a brightly lit express train, roaring like thunder, shook the switchman's cabin. "Oh, what a hurry they're in," said the little prince. "What are they looking for?" "Oh, not even the engineer on the locomotive knows," the switchman said. and another brightly lit express train thundered by in the opposite direction. "Are they coming back already?" said the little prince. "Oh, it's not the same one," the switchman said. "It's an exchange." "They weren't satisfied where they were?" asked the little prince. "No one is ever satisfied where he is," the switchman said. And a third brightly lit express train thundered past. "Are they chasing the first travelers?" asked the little prince. "They're not chasing anything," the switchman said. "They're sleeping in there, or else they're yawning. Only the children are pressing their noses against the window panes." "Only the children know what they're looking for," said the little prince. "They spend their time on a rag doll, and it becomes very important. And if it's taken away from them, they cry." "They're lucky," the switchman said. Chapter 23. "Good morning," said the little prince. "Good morning," said the sales clerk. This was a sales clerk who sold pills invented to quench thirst. Swallow one a week, and you no longer felt any need to drink. "Why do you sell these pills?" "They save so much time," the sales clerk said. "Experts have calculated that you can save 53 minutes a week." "And what do you do with those 53 minutes?" "Whatever you like." "If I had 53 minutes to spend as I liked," the little prince said to himself, "I'd walk very slowly toward a water fountain." Chapter 24. It was now the 8th day since my crash landing in the desert, and I'd listened to the story about the sales clerk as I was drinking the last drop of my water supply. I said to the little prince, "Your memories are very pleasant, but I haven't yet repaired my plane. I have nothing left to drink, and I, too, would be glad to walk very slowly toward a water fountain." "My friend, the fox, told me—" "Little fellow, this has nothing to do with the fox." "Why?" "Because we're going to die of thirst." The little prince didn't follow my reasoning and answered me, "It's good to have had a friend, even if you're going to die. Myself, I'm very glad to have had a fox for a friend." "He doesn't realize the danger," I said to myself. "He's never hungry or thirsty. A little sunlight is enough for him." But the little prince looked at me and answered my thought. "I'm thirsty too. Let's find a well." I made an exasperated gesture. It is absurd looking for a well at random in the vastness of the desert. But even so, we started walking. When we had walked for several hours in silence, night fell and stars began to appear. I noticed them as in a dream, being somewhat feverish on account of my thirst. The little prince's words danced in my memory. "So, you're thirsty too?" I asked. But he didn't answer my question. He merely said to me, "Water can also be good for the heart." I didn't understand his answer, but I said nothing. I knew by this time that it was no use questioning him. He was tired. He sat down. I sat down next to him, and after a silence he spoke again. "The stars are beautiful because of a flower you don't see." I answered, "Yes, of course." And without speaking another word, I stared at the ridges of sand in the moonlight. "The desert is beautiful," the little prince added. And it was true. I've always loved the desert. You sit down on a sand dune, you see nothing, you hear nothing, and yet something shines, something sings in that silence. "What makes the desert beautiful," the little prince said, "is that it hides a well somewhere." I was surprised by suddenly understanding that mysterious radiance of the sands. When I was a little boy, I lived in an old house, and there was a legend that a treasure was buried in it somewhere. Of course, no one was ever able to find the treasure. Perhaps no one ever searched. But it cast a spell over the whole house. My house hid a secret in the depths of its heart. Yes, I said to the little prince, whether it's a house or the stars or the desert, what makes them beautiful is invisible. I'm glad, he said, you agree with my fox. As the little prince was falling asleep, I picked him up in my arms and started walking again. I was moved. It was as if I was carrying a fragile treasure. It actually seemed to me there was nothing more fragile on earth. By the light of the moon, I gazed at that pale forehead, those closed eyes, those locks of hair trembling in the wind, and I said to myself, what I'm looking at is only a shell. What's most important is invisible. As his lips parted in a half smile, I said to myself again, what moves me so deeply about this sleeping prince is his loyalty to a flower. The image of a rose shining within him like a flame within a lamp, even when he's asleep. And I realized he was even more fragile than I had thought. Lamps must be protected. A gust of wind can blow them out. And walking on like that, I found the well at daybreak. Chapter 25. The little prince said, people start out in express trains, but they no longer know what they're looking for. Then they get all excited and rush around in circles. And he added, it's not worth the trouble. The well we had come to was not at all like the wells of the Sahara. The wells of the Sahara are no more than holes dug in the sand. This one looked more like a village well, but there was no village here, and I thought I was dreaming. It's strange, I said to the little prince. Everything is ready. The pulley, the bucket, and the rope. He laughed, grasped the rope, and set the pulley working. And the pulley groaned the way an old weather vane groans when the wind has been asleep a long time. Hear that? Said the little prince. We've awakened this well, and it's singing. I didn't want him to tire himself out. Let me do that for you, I said to him. It's too heavy for you. Slowly, I hoisted the bucket to the edge of the well. I set it down with great care. The song of the pulley continued in my ears, and I saw the sun glisten on the still trembling water. I'm thirsty for that water, said the little prince. Let me drink some. And I understood what he'd been looking for. I raised the bucket to his lips. He drank, eyes closed. It was as sweet as a feast. That water was more than merely a drink. It was born of our walk beneath the stars, of the song of the pulley, of the effort of my arms. It did the heart good, like a present. When I was a little boy, the Christmas tree lights, the music of midnight mass, and the tenderness of people's smiles made up, in the same way, the whole radiance of the Christmas present I received. People where you live, the little prince said, grow 5,000 roses in one garden, yet they don't find what they're looking for. They don't find it, I answered. And yet, what they're looking for could be found in a single rose or a little water. Of course, I answered. And the little prince added, but eyes are blind. You have to look with the heart. I had drunk the water. I could breathe easy now. The sand, at daybreak, is honey-colored, and that color was making me happy too. Why then did I also feel so sad? You must keep your promise, said the little prince, sitting up again beside me. What promise? You know, a muzzle for my sheep. I'm responsible for this flower. I took my drawings out of my pocket. The little prince glanced at them and laughed as he said, Your baobabs look more like cabbages. Oh, I had been so proud of my baobabs. Your fox, the ears look more like horns, and long. And he laughed again. Oh, you're being unfair, my little prince, I said. I never knew how to draw anything but boas from the inside and boas from the outside. Oh, that'll be all right, he said. Children will understand. So then I drew a muzzle, and with a heavy heart, I handed it to him. You've made plans I don't know about. But he didn't answer. He said, You know, my fall to Earth, tomorrow will be the first anniversary. Then, after a silence, he continued, I landed very near here. And he blushed. And once again, without understanding why, I felt a strange grief. However, a question occurred to me. Then, it wasn't by accident that on the morning I met you 8 days ago, you were walking that way, all alone, 1,000 miles from any inhabited region? Were you returning to the place where you fell to earth? The little prince blushed again, and I added, hesitantly, perhaps on account of the anniversary? The little prince blushed once more. He never answered questions, but when someone blushes, doesn't that mean yes? Ah, I said to the little prince, I'm afraid. But he answered, You must get to work now. You must get back to your engine. I'll wait here. Come back tomorrow night. But I wasn't reassured. I remembered the fox. You risk tears if you let yourself be tamed. Chapter 26. Beside the well, there was a ruin, an old stone wall. When I came back from my work the next evening, I caught sight of my little prince from a distance. He was sitting on top of the wall, legs dangling, and I heard him talking. Don't you remember? He was saying. This isn't the exact place. Another voice must have answered him then, for he replied, Oh, yes, it's the right day, but this isn't the place. I continued walking toward the wall. I still could neither see nor hear anyone, yet the little prince answered again, Of course. You'll see where my tracks begin on the sand. Just wait for me there. I'll be there tonight. I was 20 yards from the wall and still saw no one. Then the little prince said, after a silence, Your poison is good? You're sure it won't make me suffer long? I stopped short, my heart pounding, but I still didn't understand. No, go away, the little prince said. I want to get down from here. Then I looked down toward the foot of the wall, and I gave a great start. There, coiled in front of the little prince, was one of those yellow snakes that can kill you in 30 seconds. As I dug into my pocket for my revolver, I stepped back, but at the noise I made, the snake flowed over the sand like a trickling fountain, and without even hurrying, slipped away between the stones with a faint metallic sound. I reached the wall just in time to catch my little prince in my arms, his face white as snow. What's going on here? You're talking to snakes now? I had loosened the yellow scarf he always wore. I had moistened his temples and made him drink some water. And now I didn't dare ask him anything more. He gazed at me with a serious expression and put his arms around my neck. I felt his heart beating like a dying bird's when it's been shot. He said to me, I'm glad you found out what was the matter with your engine. Now you'll be able to fly again. How did you know? I was just coming to tell him that I had been successful beyond all hope. He didn't answer my question. All he said was, I'm leaving today too. And then, sadly, it's much further. It's much more difficult. I realized that something extraordinary was happening. I was holding him in my arms like a little child, yet it seemed to me that he was dropping headlong into an abyss, and I could do nothing to hold him back. His expression was very serious now, lost and remote. "I have your sheep, and I have the crate for it, and the muzzle." And he smiled sadly. I waited a long time. I could feel that he was reviving a little. "Oh, little fellow, you were frightened." Of course he was frightened, but he laughed a little. "I'll be much more frightened tonight." Once again, I felt chilled by the sense of something irreparable, and I realized I couldn't bear the thought of never hearing that laugh again. For me, it was like a spring of fresh water in the desert. "Little fellow, I want to hear you laugh again." But he said to me, "Tonight it'll be a year. My star will be just above the place where I fell last year." "Oh, little fellow, it's a bad dream, isn't it? All this conversation with the snake and the meeting place and the star." But he didn't answer my question. All he said was, "The important thing is what can't be seen." Well, of course. "It's the same as for the flower. If you love a flower that lives on a star, then it's good at night to look up at the sky. All the stars are blossoming." Of course. "It's the same for the water. The water you gave me to drink was like music on account of the pulley and the rope. You remember, it was good." Of course. "At night, you'll look up at the stars. It's too small where I live for me to show you where my star is. It's better that way. My star will be one of the stars for you, so you'll like looking at all of them. They'll all be your friends. And besides, I have a present for you." And he laughed again. "Oh, little fellow, I love hearing that laugh." "That'll be my present. Just that. It'll be the same as for the water." "What do you mean?" "Well, people have stars, but they aren't the same. For travelers, the stars are guides. For other people, they're nothing but tiny lights. And for still others, for scholars, they're problems. For my businessmen, they were gold, but all those stars are silent stars. You, though, you will have stars like nobody else." "What do you mean?" "Well, when you look up at the sky at night, since I'll be living on one of them, since I'll be laughing on one of them, for you, it'll be as if all the stars are laughing. You'll have stars that can laugh." And he laughed again. "And when you're consoled, everyone eventually is consoled, you'll be glad you've known me. You'll always be my friend. You'll feel like laughing with me. And you'll open your window sometime just for the fun of it, and your friends will be amazed to see you laughing while you're looking up at the sky. Then you'll tell them, 'Yes, it's the stars. They always make me laugh.' And they'll think you're a crazy person, but it'll be like a nasty trick I've played on you." And he laughed again. "And it'll be as if I had given you, instead of stars, a lot of tiny bells that know how to laugh." And then he laughed again. Then he grew serious once more. "Tonight, you know, don't come." "I won't leave you." "It'll look as if I'm suffering. It'll look a little as if I'm dying. It'll look that way. Don't come to see that. It's not worth the trouble." "I won't leave you." But he was anxious. "I'm telling you this on account of the snake. He mustn't bite you. Snakes are nasty sometimes. They bite just for fun." "I won't leave you." But something reassured him. "It's true, they don't have enough poison for a second bite." That night, I didn't see him leave. He got away without making a sound. When I managed to catch up with him, he was walking fast, with determination. All he said was, "Oh, you're here." And he took my hand, but he was still anxious. "You were wrong to come. You'll suffer. It'll look as if I'm dead, and that won't be true." I said nothing. "You understand. It's too far. I can't take this body with me. It's too heavy." I said nothing. "But it'll be like an old abandoned shell. There's nothing sad about an old shell. I said nothing. He was a little disheartened now, but he made one more effort. It'll be nice, you know. I'll be looking at the stars too. All the stars will be wells with a rusty pulley. All the stars will pour out water for me to drink. I said nothing. And it'll be fun. You'll have 500 million little bells. I'll have 500 million springs of fresh water. And he, too, said nothing because he was weeping. Here's the place. Let me go on alone. And he sat down because he was frightened. Then he said, You know, my flower, I'm responsible for her. And she's so weak and so naive. She has 4 ridiculous thorns to defend her against the world. I sat down too because I was unable to stand any longer. He said, There. That's all. He hesitated a little longer. Then he stood up. He took a step. I couldn't move. There was nothing but a yellow flash close to his ankle. He remained motionless for an instant. He didn't cry out. He fell gently, the way a tree falls. There wasn't even a sound because of the sand. Chapter 27. And now, of course, it's been 6 years already. I've never told this story before. The friends who saw me again were very glad to see me alive. I was sad, but I told them, it's fatigue. Now I'm somewhat consoled. That is, not entirely. But I know he did get back to his planet, because at daybreak I didn't find his body. It wasn't such a heavy body. And at night, I love listening to the stars. It's like 500 million little bells. But something extraordinary has happened. When I drew that muzzle for the little prince, I forgot to put in the leather strap. He could never have fastened it on his sheep. And then I wonder, well, what's happened there on his planet? Maybe the sheep has eaten the flour. Sometimes I tell myself, of course not. The little prince puts his flour under glass, and he keeps close watch over his sheep. Then I'm happy, and all the stars laugh sweetly. Sometimes I tell myself, anyone might be distracted once in a while, and that's all it takes. One night he forgot to put her under glass, or else the sheep got out without making any noise during the night, and then the bells are all changed into tears. It's all a great mystery, for you who love the little prince too. As for me, nothing in the universe can be the same if somewhere, no one knows where, a sheep we never saw has or has not eaten a rose. Look up at the sky. Ask yourself, has this sheep eaten the flower or not? And you'll see how everything changes. And no grown-up will ever understand how such a thing could be so important. For me, this is the loveliest and the saddest landscape in the world. It's the same landscape as the one on the preceding page, but I've drawn it one more time in order to be sure you see it clearly. It's here that the little prince appeared on Earth, then disappeared. Look at this landscape carefully to be sure of recognizing it if you should travel to Africa someday in the desert. And if you happen to pass by here, I beg you not to hurry past. Wait a little, just under the star. Then, if a child comes to you, if he laughs, if he has golden hair, if he doesn't answer your questions, you'll know who he is. If this should happen, be kind. Don't let me go on being so sad. Send word immediately that he's come back. And that ends The Little Prince.